Print, email, Facebook, Twitter. More Colonial art exhibition sheds new light on Tasmania's brutal Black War. An exhibition of colonial artwork is aiming to shed new light on Tasmania's brutal Black War, in which hundreds of Indigenous people were killed. In 1826, Governor George Arthur declared martial law against Aboriginal Tasmanians, and called for them to be expelled by force from settled areas. At least 750 Aboriginal people were killed in the frontier conflict and more than 150 colonialists died, with many more injured. The National Picture, The Art of Tasmania's Black War, is a newly assembled collection of paintings, sculptures, drawings and prints that examine British settlers' representations of Tasmanian Aboriginal people at the time. The exhibition, which opened today at the National Gallery of Australia, NGA, was based on years of research by curators Tim Boney-Heady and Greg Lehman, who aim to provide fresh insight into Australia's colonial past. It focuses heavily on controversial conciliator George Augustus Robinson, who was commissioned to encourage Aboriginal people to follow him to a promised sanctuary on Flinders Island, and the work of colonial artist Benjamin Duterau. Duterau was a newly arrived free settler, who became fascinated with Robinson's attempted role as peacemaker between Indigenous Tasmanians and the white settlers. Professor Boney-Heady said the artwork showed Duterau and other artists had recognized what was happening in Tasmania had momentous significance. They recognized the impact of colonization on Aboriginal people had been catastrophic, he said. Dr. Lehman said while much had been written about this period, colonial artworks provided a rich visual insight, so that we can not only read about some of the Aboriginal people who were involved, but see portraits of them and understand them more, he said. We would like to try and tell their stories through this exhibition. Pictorial boards still resonate. Among the most significant works in the exhibition are 5 proclamation boards, which were produced in Hobart around 1830 and were designed to communicate the consequences of hostility between the settlers and Indigenous Tasmanians. At the height of the Black War, the colony's Surveyor General, George Franklin, observed the Aboriginal people had a pictorial language and suggested the government employ art as a way of communicating. Professor Boney-Heady said the boards were divided into a number of bands, with the first depicting equal treatment before the law. They show a settler shooting an Aboriginal and an Aboriginal spearing a settler, and in each case there is equal punishment, with the killer being executed as a consequence, he said. In fact, we know that none of the settlers were strung up for killing Aboriginals, but this is what the boards show. Then they show a meeting between an Aboriginal chief and Governor Arthur shaking hands. Then in the final, top band, there is a happy interracial society where you have a white woman holding a black child and a black woman holding a white child. The message is that if we have equal treatment before law, then we can settle our differences, reach agreement and produce a happy interracial society. Dr. Lehman said the boards resonated today, particularly at the moment when there is a national conversation about constitutional recognition and treaty with Aboriginal people. These boards can be seen as an offer of a treaty, he said. There is a really clear commitment about equal rights and treatment before the law and an aspiration for a peaceful society. That central figure of an Aboriginal chief shaking hands with the governor really symbolizes to my eyes what a treaty is all about. Unfortunately, these boards are also a reminder of the injustice at those times and the continuing injustice. Even though we know there were a number of promises to Tasmanian Aboriginal people, all of those were broken. This show has some really important messages for the situation today. Paintings brought from around the world. More than 100 of the boards were made at the time, but just 7 remain today and they are dispersed across the world. This exhibition will be the first time a group of the boards have been brought together. It also features some of the only known portraits of Indigenous Tasmanians painted prior to and during their exile to Flinders Island. Professor Boney-Heady said one of the most striking portraits was of an Aboriginal man who Robinson had renamed King Alexander. What is so striking about King Alexander is that despite the European name that has been bestowed upon him, he is still in his traditional clothes, he said. It is an extraordinary, powerful manifestation of a deep desire to maintain culture. The exhibition spans the start of the Black War in 1828 to Duterau's death in 1851. Aboriginal oral history and works from the 20th and 21st centuries sit alongside the colonial works. NGA Director Gerard Vaughan described the exhibition as challenging, courageous and necessary. The NGA is proud to present this thoughtful and moving contribution to our ever-evolving national narrative, he said. The exhibition runs until July 29 at the NGA before moving to Hobart and Launceston. Print, email, Facebook, Twitter. More